will be present about internal control system. And this is our members group names. And I will present the first subchapter, replacing Adele. Okay. So the first is definition of internal control. So internal control system include an organizational structure, methods, and measures are coordinated to maintain organizational assets, check the accuracy and reliability of accounting data, promote efficiency, and encourage compliance with management policies. So the purpose of the internal control system, according to this definition, are the first is to maintain organizational assets. Second is check to the accuracy and reliability of accounting data, promote efficiency, and encourage compliance with management policies. There are 4 elements of the internal control system. The first one is an organizational structure that strictly separates functional responsibilities, system of authority and recording procedures that provide adequate protection for assets, debit income, and expense. And next is healthy practice in carrying out the duties and function of each organizational unit. And the last is employees whose quality is in accordance with their responsibilities. Next is an organizational structure that clearly separates functional responsibilities. So the division of functional responsibilities within the organization is based on the following principle. The first one is operation and storage functions should be separated from accounting function. And then a function may not be given fully responsibility for carrying out all stages of the transaction. To carry out purchasing transaction in a company, for example, the function formative, warehouse function, purchasing function, receiving function, and accounting function, which each of these functions as follows: warehouse, a storage function, the purchasing function as an operating function, the receiving function as an operating function too, and then the accounting function as a recording function. Next is a system of authority and record-keeping procedures that provide adequate protection for debt, asset, income, and expenses. Good recording procedure will ensure that the data recorded in the form is recorded in accounting records with a high degree of accuracy and reliability. The authorization system will ensure that reliable accounting documents are produced so that they will become reliable input for the accounting process. Number 1, the head of the warehouse function is authorized to submit a purchase request with a purchase request which is shown to the purchase function. Number 2, the head of the purchasing function, namely the authority to authorize the purchase order letter issued by the buyer function. Number 3, the head of the receiving function, namely the authority to authorize the goods receipt report issued by receiving function. And the last is the head of the accounting function is authorized to authorize the cash outflow, which is used as the basis for recording the purchase transaction. Healthy practice in performing the tasks and functions of each organization. Unit of sharing the functional and responsible authority and regional system procedures will not be implemented whether it is not made in ways to ensure healthy practice in its implementation as the means commonly by the company in creating healthy practices are: A. use a printed serial numbered form which must be accounted for by the authorized Sadek inspection. Every transaction may be carried out from start to finish by one person or one organizational unit without interference from other people or organizational unit. And then rotation of position, the necessity of taking time off for employees who are entitled, periodic, periodically the physical matching of the set of health with the record, and the last is the information of an organizational unit whose task is to check the effectiveness of other elements of the internal control system. To ensure healthy practice in carrying out purchasing transaction, for example, the purchasing system is structured on the following basis. Number one, purchase transaction must be carried out by the following that work independently, namely the warehouse function, the purchase function, the receiving function, and the accounting function. Number two, forms, namely the purchase order letter, the purchase of the goods receipt report, and the cash out receipt are designed with a printed serial number and accountable used by head of warehouse function, head of purchase function, function head, and head of accounting function. Periodically, there is a reconciliation between the inventory ledger maintained by the accounting function and the physical inventory in the warehouse. The next subchapter is going to be presented by Monique.
First of all, I wanna apologize because you might not hear my voice clearly. I'm really sorry about that. This is employee function whose quality is in accordance with their responsibilities. Among the main elements of internal control mentioned above, the element of employee quality is the most important element of the internal control system. If the company has employees who are competent and honest, other element of control can be reduced to a minimum, and the company is still able to produce reliable financial accountability. Next. To find competent and trustworthy employee, the following ways can be taken. First one, selection of prospective employee based on the requirement demanded by the job. In order to obtain employees who have the skill that are accordance with the demand of responsibilities that are to bear, management must conduct an analysis of the exciting position in the company and determine the conditions that are met by the prospective employees who will take up the position. A good program in the selection of prospective employee will ensure that employees who have the competencies demanded by the position they will occupy. Number two, develop of employee education while being company employees in the accordance with demand develop of his work. Next. Environment control. The control environment has four elements. Number one is philosophy and operating style. Number two, the function of the board of commissioner and adult commit. And number three is management control method. And number four, operational control awareness. Next. In the first one, philosophy and style of operation. Philosophy is a set of basic benefits that are parameters for the company and its employee. Philosophy is what the company should and do and what the company should not. Like example, a philosophy set by the top management of a company that emphasizes integrity in conducting its business. We believe that integrity in the foundation of all business relations. Therefore, we expect all of our employees to be honest in dealing with consumers, suppliers, and related parties on behalf of their company with us in doing business. Management does this philosophy with full honesty and the foundation of its business. This company financial report will be used as a management tool to reflect the honesty of the company financial accountability to anyone who has business with them. As such, this philosophy become the unique color of the company in conducting their business. Next. Number two, the function of the Board of Commissioner and the Audit Committee. The Board of Commissioner is the representative of the shareholders in a limit liability company. This board function to be oversee the management of the company, which is carried out by management or directors in a company in the form of a limit liability company. If the appointment of public accountant is carried out by top management, the freedom of the public accountant can be appear to be reduced for the perspective of the shareholders. The function of the audit committee that directly impact public accountant are appoint a public accountant who carries out an annual audit of the company's financial statement, discuss extensive audit with a public accountant, requesting direct communication with public accountant regarding major problems found the accountant in their examination, receive the financial report and accountant reports when the accountant audit is complete. Next. This is the management control method. Management control method is a method of planning and controlling the allocation of company resource in achieving company goals. Planning and management control is carried out through 4 stages. First, programming, long-term plan. Program development is a decision-making process regarding to the programs to be implemented by the company and an assessment of the resource allocating to each of this program. Number 2, it's budgeting, short-term plans. The budgeting preparation process is basically a role-setting process in an effort to achieve company goals. Number 3, implementation of measurement. The implementation of plan content in program and budgets requires an accounting information system to measure resource consumption in the achieving company goals. And number 4, reporting and analyze. The existence and effectiveness of the internal audit function is also an important element in creating an internal control environment. Internal examiners have the ability to opportunity to make observation and give influence on a daily basis in the implementation of plan content in the program and budgeting. Next. This is the last one, operational control awareness. Control awareness can be reflected in the reaction shown by management from various levels in the organization to control weakness, appointment by the internal accountant or public accountant. If management immediately takes corrective action on the finding of control weakness raised by an internal accountant or public accountant, this is an indication of management commitment to create a good control environment. And the next slide will be presenting by my friend. Thank you.
Anyway, before we talking about the next subsection, there is a question: who is responsible for accounting internal control? And the answer is top management. Why? Because the business owner hands over the management of his asset to the top manager. and the manager is responsible for the result of the asset management to the owner. Asset management accountability is present in the financial statement. Good or bad internal accounting control will be seen in the financial statement. Then, regarding the wrong concept in the internal control system, top management usually consider the internal control system to be the responsibility of the finance director only and often equated with an organizational unit called the international control unit in the company. Next, I will talking about approaches to designing internal accounting control. Approaches to designing internal accounting control. Underlying the approach to designing accounting internal control is starting point of safeguarding a company asset and checking the accuracy and reliability of accounting information. And the next one, I will talk about internal accounting control in electronic data environment. The differences in the characteristic of accounting control between manual system and electronic data processing system are: in the manual system, the division of responsibility for the execution of a transaction into the hands of several people or departments in order to create cross-check and data specialization. And number two, perform a visual inspection of important transaction and document processed through the system. Number three, the manual system emphasizes control in the hands of humans, which is achieved by sharing the responsibility for carrying out the transaction among several people. Meanwhile, in the electronic system, due to the accuracy and speed of data processing with computers, there is less attention to cross-checking and processing, especially those concern calculation and accounting data processing. Number two, computers can perform various checks that were originally carried out by humans through computer programs, thereby reducing visual document editing work. And the last one, computer system emphasize control through computer programs so that the division of functional responsibilities in the transaction can be reduced. Internal accounting control in an electronic data management environment are divided into two parts as follow: general control and application control. General control are the standards and guidelines used by employees to carry out their functions. General control includes system documentation, system development and change procedure, and data processing facility operating method. Meanwhile, application control are designed to meet specific control requirements for each data processing application, such as purchasing, sales, and payroll. The next one, general control. Number one, organization. In a manual system, control is carried out by separating the main function, such as operation, storage, and accounting, while in the computer system, the function of authorization, operation, and accounting are often combined in the form of computer program, so that combining these three functions requires a special control method. Number two, control of system and program. General control related to development and program function include procedure for reviewing and validating the new system, procedure for program submission, procedure for changing programs, and documentation. Program documentation is an important tool for understanding and monitoring the program and a record of fact concerning the program system. Program documentation is carried out in the run program, which contains a description of the program objective, flowchart, program list, computer usage instruction, program test records, and example of all reports generated by the program. And the next slide will be presented by Indira.
Okay, the next is the last for the general control, which is control over data processing facilities. There are four main areas of data processing facilities. The first one is data conversion operation. This data conversion activity consists of converting data from the source document into a machine-readable form, either by batch method or by direct entry method. Next is computer operation. Computer operation can be monitored by using a control console that can be used to stop and run the system and to restart a computer that was stopped due to damage. By using console, operators can specify the internal status of register and can be used to manually enter data into the system. And then the third is library. Library control over the storage of data archive and programs must be done by library employees in a well-protected place, and which can only be entered by authorized employees. So these three areas are related to data processing facilities, while the last area, which is control function, is related to the control of input and output of electronic data processing departments, namely the control function. Control function divided into two, which is the internal supervisory function. Internal supervisory function implemented by the supervisory group section in the electronic data processing department, and the external supervisory function is intended to conduct independent checks on the implementation of the function of the electronic department processing department. The checks are carried out by the user department or in a large companies carried out by special organizational unit formed in the accounting and finance department. And then application control, which is different from the general control. Unlike general control, application control is designed to meet the specific control requirements of each application. The purpose of application control is to ensure that all transactions that have been authorized have been processed once in full, guarantee that transaction data is complete and true, guarantee that the processing of transaction data is correct and in accordance with the circumstance, guarantee that the data processing results are utilized for the purposes that have been established, and the latter to ensure that the application can be continuously functioning. Application control is divided into two, which is preventive control and detective control. Preventive control acts as a clue to help things happen the way they should. Meanwhile, the detective control done to find or detect a problem and find the root of the problem. I'll explain the preventive control first. So the preventive control, this control activity is done to prevent a problem. Generally, this preventive control is carried out before the data enters the computer program. There are 8 elements of preventive control. The first one is authorization of source data. Authorization of source data is document used as data source processed in computers wherever possible must contain proof of authorization from the competent and studied by the supervisory group in the Department of Electronic Data Processing. Next is data conversion. Data conversion, as we all know, is the process of converting data from a form that cannot be read by the machine into a machine-readable form. There are techniques commonly used to monitor data conversion, namely the creation of source data document as a byproduct of recording activities and the use of turnaround documents that eliminate data conversion activities. Next is the preparation of source data. In an electronic data processing environment, conventional source documents are still widely used. Therefore, control is required before the source document is converted into a machine-readable form. And then next is turnaround document. So turnaround document, the use of this turnaround document can create precision in the preparation of inputs to be processed with a computer. Next is printed serial number form. So the use of printed serial number form can encourage healthy practice in a company. And then validate feedback is a last resort to supervise the preparation of inputs to be processed by the computer. Computer editing capabilities can be achieved by entering checks in the program such as validity test, completeness check, logical check, self-checking digits, and control totals. Validity test used to guarantee the transaction contain valid codes, character, and field size. And completeness check used to ensure that input has the amount of data as specified in all data fields. Next is logical check. Logical check used in various transactions or fields contained in records have a logical relationship between each other. Next is self-checking digits. Self-checking digits are used to ensure the accuracy of identification numbers, such as account codes. This check digit is determined by performing calculation on the identification number itself. And the last is control totals, which is used to guarantee that all inputs have been recorded in the computer archive. The next element is update archive with computer. And then the last is control over data processing. Control over data processing performed using programmatic control, designed to detect data loss, check calculation, and ensure correct transaction bookkeeping. Programmable control can take the following form of control. The first one is record count. Record count is the number of records processed by the computer. And then control totals is used to ensure that all inputs have been recorded in the computer archive. Next is hash total. In the number of numbers contained in a non-quality field, such as a supplier code number or a subscription code number. Next is limit checks. Limit checks is a limitation created in computer programs to reject data that is beyond and previously set limit. Next is cross-voting balance check. Cross-voting balance check is an internal comparison through a computer program between a number of records and another number of records. Next is overflow test, which is used to determine whether the size of the calculation result exceeds the size provided to accommodate the result of the calculation. And then the last is file check. File check is a control used to ensure that the archives used in data processing are correct. And detective control. So detective control won't prevent the problem from happening, but it will provide clues as to where the problem occurred. Or it can be said that the control is done where there has been a problem. For example of detective control is data transmission, control register, control totals, document and testing, use labels. So the use of labels will facilitate the identification of archive and will prevent the use of archive incorrectly. And then the lastly is output check. Output check consists of the following procedure and technique. The first one is reconcile output data, especially control totals, with control totals predefined at the time of preparing input data. Next is review of the input data on fairness and format. Number 3, control over input data rejected by the computer in data processing and distribution of rejecting data to the related employees. And then the last is distribution of computer issued reports to the user department in a timely manner. So, if we compare the preventive control and detective control, if we compare it in cost, the preventive is more cheaper than the detective one. Okay, I think that's all from us. Thank you for listening to our presentation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.